Storms and all these trash bag teams, right? Of which there's a lot in the WNBA of said trash bag teams. They were going to whip the shit out of those teams. It was going to be the Minnesota Lynxes of the world that you got to get past to win a title, and they got their ass handed to them, shown to them, like rum, pseudo-rum, bump, wump from Indiana Jones.
Frustration is mounting around the Indiana Fever front office after news broke that forward Damiris Dantas is finished for the season. Fans and analysts had flagged roster depth concerns for months, questioning why the team didn't add size at the trade deadline, why Jaylen Brown was let go, and why certain draft picks were made over other available prospects.
Showing the heart. They ripped in, they put their fist into the Indiana Fever's chest, pulled out the heart and showed it to them. Monorum, Sudarum, boop, boop, right here. Yeah. Indy, wake up. Yeah. Indiana Fever front office. Hey, Indy, wake up. For real. Damiris Dantas. Nah.
The team had been rolling through weaker opponents, the kind of matchups expected to be handled easily, but a road loss to the Minnesota Lynx exposed how thin the roster really is once a stronger opponent applies pressure.
Damiris Dantas. Nah. She's done. It's over. It's a wrap. Out for the season.
She's a connector, and her personality, and she's a great communicator. She's a vet. Miss her ability to stretch the floor on the floor. She can knock down a shot. She can give us a different look from that position as well.
Will she not be with you guys at all the rest of the way with this?
I'm not sure. I think it'll probably depend on what her recovery looks like.
When did this happen? How did this happen?
In a press availability, a team staffer described Dantas as a steady locker room presence and strong communicator who provided outside shooting and a different look from her position, but couldn't say for certain whether she'd return at all this season. Questions followed about the timeline, when the issue surfaced, what the rehab process looked like, and why it was initially called precautionary during a game against Connecticut the prior week. The answer indicated the team first tried rehab to reduce symptoms and build strength, and only pursued further testing once that approach didn't produce results. Dantas ultimately had surgery on Monday to repair the injury, ending her season.
Happen. Has she been playing? What did I miss?
Just what was the process in? I know you guys said it was precautionary last Wednesday against Connecticut, which into you guys on the road trip.
Yep.
Just what was the process of getting that testing and then ultimately?
Yeah, I think the first part of the process is just rehab to see if you can minimize symptoms and get stronger and eliminate or some of the effects. And when you go through rehab and you don't get the desired effects, then
the news set off heavy reaction online. Commentators pointed out that letting a veteran big depart in the offseason now looks like a costlier decision without a proven backup in place, and some fans called for accountability from team leadership, arguing the front office should have addressed depth at the deadline. Others questioned why beat reporters hadn't surfaced more detail on the situation sooner. Multiple posts criticized the front office, coaching staff, and ownership broadly for what fans described as a pattern of mismanagement around a roster built to support a star player, though some of that criticism crossed into personal remarks about team leadership that added little to the actual basketball discussion.
Effects, then you take the next step, and the next step.
Nice. That's all there is, thank God, because that's all I could stand. Oh. Damiris Dantas underwent successful knee surgery on Monday to repair meniscus. She's done. A lot of reaction to this. It would be nice if the Fever still had Justine Passat. Oh, well, that would require a competent front office.
Amid the front office criticism, there was also good news. Caitlin Clark earned Eastern Conference Player of the Week honors for the third time this season, putting up averages of 25.7 points, 53.7% shooting, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds over the stretch, a run that included both a triple-double and a double-double. Fans celebrated the recognition, and several began pushing the idea that she should be part of the MVP conversation.
Had Justine Passat. Oh, well, that would require a competent front office. Yeah. That means we can reclaim some money to sign someone. Let's see. Seriously. The Fever Dark side are calling for a vote of no confidence against the Indiana Fever front office. Wow. So the morons covering the Fever couldn't report this, question mark. Well, they're too busy carrying.
Still, the underlying roster concerns remain. Analysts drew comparisons to NFL quarterbacks who reached championship stages early in their careers but never returned, pointing out that postseason windows are rare and not guaranteed to repeat, and that the current roster, as built, may not be doing enough to maximize the opportunity in front of it.
Well, they're too busy carrying water for the organization, for Stephanie White. Nothing to see here. Please move along. How did this happen? She hasn't been playing. Either way, stupid decision to let Justine Passat walk. Just like we said. Just like the fandom said. This is who we got rid of Justine Passat for? Bruh, what the F? Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
The whole situation surrounding Caitlin Clark right now is genuinely unfair to her, and it's worth breaking down what's actually happened.
Honestly. Unbelievable. Get well soon, DD. Who is AB's backup again? Oh, right, no one. This front office knew this and did nothing at the deadline. Total incompetence. It's a great point. We just had the trade deadline.
Roughly a week and a half back, during the Seattle matchup, a reporter at that game made a clear effort to steer Clark toward a question that had nothing to do with basketball. The setup was designed so that whatever she answered, backlash was guaranteed. That reporter is someone widely viewed as hostile toward Clark. On the flip side, other reporters coming from the opposite ideological direction asked her essentially the same question, and when she chose the safest, most neutral, least controversial response possible, that group turned on her too, framing it as if she were siding against her teammate, Sophie Cunningham.
A non-basketball question, and while getting her to answer that non-basketball question, they were trying to throw her under the bus because it was a question that no matter what her answer, no matter what answer she gave, it would cause a shit show. And that reporter is again somebody who's despises Caitlin, is referred to her as a white teenage boy. And then you've got other now reporters from the other extreme that essentially ask Caitlin Clark the same question.
To be clear about one thing, there is exactly one person who does not want Clark stepping in publicly to defend what Cunningham said, and that person is Cunningham herself. Even head coach Cheryl Reeve, based on what lip readers picked up on camera, appeared to get thanked by Cunningham specifically for not jumping in to defend her in public. By every account from people who've actually spent time around her, Cunningham is a genuinely likable teammate. Her views are her own, she's not shy about stating them, but she isn't looking for anyone else to be pulled into defending them either.
That essentially asked Caitlin Clark the same question, and then when she decided she didn't want to answer it, and gave the most diplomatic, middle-of-the-road, uncontroversial answer, they're now attacking her because basically she's now, going against her teammate Sophie Cunningham. And I'm going to be very clear here. There is one person, I'll tell you for a fact.
Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever organization has started denying press credentials to certain reporters, the same ones who had tried to get into
I'll tell you for a fact that Sophie Cunningham, that doesn't want Caitlin Clark coming out to defend what Sophie Cunningham said, and that's Sophie Cunningham. Even with Cheryl Reeve, lip readers have basically said that she basically thanked Cheryl Reeve for not trying to defend her publicly. Because at the end of the day, by all accounts, whether you agree with Sophie's opinion or not, She is from every...
Credit belongs to the organization here, because there's something almost comedic about the dynamic. The same crowd demanding Clark speak up on issues is never satisfied once she actually does, which is a fundamentally unfair standard to hold her to. And the crowd pushing the just play and stay quiet line for every other player only wants silence from the players they see as opposing their side. The moment it's someone they view as an ally, silence suddenly becomes a problem too.
Every single person I've heard that's ever been around Sophie Cunningham, an extremely pleasant person to be around. And her opinions are her opinions. She doesn't want anyone dragged into that. Like, it is what, like, her opinions are her opinions. She's not going to not say her opinion, but also she's not going to expect anyone to defend her opinion. But now you've got the Indiana Fever refusing credentials for certain journalists. The same credentials that...
Where Clark personally stands on any of this isn't the point, and frankly, it shouldn't matter to anyone. Her opinion on the matter, whatever it is, isn't going to shift any legislation. She simply doesn't hold that kind of influence, regardless of what anyone insists. But over the last several days alone, and the Seattle game was only 5 days ago, it's become obvious that no matter which side of the spectrum someone's coming from, if an outlet is functionally a political publication, dressed up as a sports outlet, that's a legitimate business model. Audiences choose what they want to read or listen to, and that's fine. Everyone's entitled to weigh in on whatever topics they want to cover. But when an athlete doesn't want to wade into any of it, when someone would rather just play their sport and leave it there, that choice deserves respect. That principle isn't unique to sports. Anyone, in any walk of life, is allowed to focus on their craft without being pushed into activism they didn't ask for. Yet Clark has essentially been shoved toward that role anyway. People already have a general sense of where her personal politics land, but none of that should carry any real weight in how she's judged as an athlete or a person.
For certain journalists, the same credentials that the same journalists that were trying to get into the Lynx game were then trying to get credential for the Fever game. They're getting refused credentials. Why are they getting refused credentials? Because the Indiana Fever know, just like why the Indiana Fever did not put Caitlin Clark out in Seattle, because they knew that journalist was going to ask a question and they knew it was going to have nothing to do with basketball. They know that these quote-unquote media, or, well, not, I'm going to say quote-unquote media sources because they are. And these media...
Even Dave Portnoy, of all people, has recently sounded like the reasonable one in this conversation, essentially saying, let her play, she clearly doesn't want to touch these questions, people just want to watch her play basketball. When Portnoy comes across as the level-headed voice in a debate, that's a sign of just how far off the rails the broader conversation has drifted.
Well, not, I'm going to say quote-unquote media sources because they are. And these media sources don't want Caitlin Clark to answer a basketball question. It is as simple as that. And I'm going to give props to the Indiana Fever because it's so funny the way the crowd that want Caitlin Clark to speak out and everything, when she does, it's never good enough, which is completely unfair to her. And then the crowd that push for every other player to just shut up and dribble. When a player is shutting up and dribbling, who they want to push.
There's also been a wave of genuinely unhinged commentary directed at Sophie Cunningham lately. None of it defensible, and it's doubtful she loses much sleep over it. If she truly cared about the hostile posts, the printed signs at arenas, all of that noise, she probably wouldn't be nearly as vocal as she is. She's well aware of how her comments land with fans before she makes them. As for the substance of what she's actually said, being fully honest, it's a stance that a clear majority of the country agrees with, likely somewhere around 80 to 90% globally. If you ran an anonymous poll of the players themselves, it would probably land somewhere in that 70 to 80% range of agreement too. Any frustration from teammates likely isn't about the position itself, it's more about the media cycle it created around the league.
Who they want to push a narrative, who they think is on their side and wants to push a narrative they want, that's a problem too. At the end of the day, I don't know what Caitlin Clark's stance on that whole topic is. I don't care what Caitlin Clark's stance is. I need to make that abundantly clear. I don't care. At the end of the day, It's not going to change anything. It's not going to change legislation. Caitlin Clark is not going to be able to do that. No matter what anyone wants to say, no, Caitlin Clark does not have that power. But
None of that has anything to do with Clark, though. She's a completely separate individual from Cunningham, with her own identity, an outstanding talent on the court, and arguably one of the most entertaining players to watch in the WNBA, or in basketball generally. Very few players anywhere in the sport are as fun to watch play. All of that makes the position she's currently stuck in especially awkward. Awkward for her, and honestly awkward for everyone involved in this news cycle. It's worth being honest about one more thing. It doesn't really matter which side of the media landscape someone's criticizing. Outlets latching onto Cunningham purely to take shots at the league as a whole are doing the exact same thing as outlets latching onto Clark for the same purpose. And to be fair, the league does have real legitimate issues worth criticizing. But there's plenty that's good about it too. It isn't uniformly bad. The people constantly hunting for reasons to attack Clark, acting like she can never do anything right, are cut from the same cloth as the people defending everything reflexively. They're really no different from one another.
not have that power. But again, we have seen in the last week, Seattle Storm game was only 5 days ago, but we have seen in the last week that when it comes to Caitlin Clark, it doesn't matter what side of the extreme you are on. If you are one of these people that is essentially a political media and you disguise that yourself as sports media, but you're really a political media, which is fine.
At this point, it's hard to know exactly how this plays out from here, or how much of it is actually weighing on Clark personally. But none of it is right.